The shovel handle burned my palms. Phoenix, dusk, 2 days ago. The workers had left. I finished my son's grave alone because no one else came. I'm starting here, where love met a hole in the ground. I'll keep this exact, no invention. The dirt was heavier than it looked. I packed it with my hands so the wind wouldn't move what love had just covered. Tyler was 9, 3 years of leukemia. I said his name out loud so the quiet wouldn't erase him. The air went still. I drove home in the same black dress. No procession, no family cars. A text blinked. Dinner tomorrow. Healing time. I poured water, hands shaking too much to drink. Then the phone rang. "We need the trust money for the wedding," my mother said. $12,000 for the deposit. You can float it. Paper cut the quiet. They had known the funeral time and chose an engagement party across town. They had known I would stand over a child-sized rectangle and lower my boy without them. Now they wanted me to underwrite celebration. I kept my voice level because grief had already taken my volume. I said the lawyer would need a few days. The room held its breath. Here's the arithmetic. The fund existed because Tyler's father died. $50,000. I never touched a cent. Nights at Phoenix Children's paid the bills because I wanted that money to remain his. When doctor said time was short, I asked about donating in Tyler's name. The lawyer said yes. I signed. 2 weeks before that call, every dollar went to the Children's Cancer Research Alliance. The AC clicked once. Tomorrow, they wanted a healing dinner. Best china, warm light, the script of moving on. I would sit in my old chair, hear "The boy won't need it now," and tell them what his money had become, a memorial that funds research for children like him. The clock started to count. I walked to Tyler's room. Dinosaur posters, Herbert the Triceratops on the unmade bed. I told the truth to Fabric because there was no one else to hear it. 2 days, 3 years, $50,000. That's the scale. Silence pressed the door. I kept seeing the steakhouse photo from months earlier, the night he retched through chemo and asked why his grandparents didn't come. Smiles over wine, perfect plates, a timestamp that didn't flinch. That picture cured me of asking for tenderness from people who measure it in convenience. Cold air, colder resolve. If numbers cut deeper than vows, stay with me. By morning, the house was thin with quiet. Burnt coffee, trash day trucks on the street. Scottsdale that evening, the healing dinner. I'm here to say what happened in order, because order matters when people claim they meant well. I'll tell the truth you can verify. $50,000, transferred. 2 weeks earlier, Children's Cancer Research Alliance. My name, my signature, Tyler's memorial. That's our bridge from part 1. Now the door opens. Cool air met warm lamps. Dad's quick hug. Mom said pot roast. Patricia was bright. Brad watched his phone. My old chair waited next to the empty place where a 9-year-old used to sit. The AC clicked once. They circled money fast. Dad called me generous. Mom said, Tyler would want us happy. Patricia suggested a small photo so it wouldn't bring the mood down. When they asked the amount, Dad answered $50,000, like it belonged to him. Fork on porcelain. I donated it, I said, every dollar 2 weeks ago. The word landed. Mom. You what? Brad finally looked up. Patricia's face hardened. The room went still. Patricia said I'd ruined her wedding. Mom called me selfish. Dad said, we'll get lawyers. You had no right. I gave the line that ends that. I am Tyler's mother. I am the court-appointed executor. The donation is legal and final. Short silence, then heat. Here is the pattern. Early in treatment, they visited. Flowers, the right words. As the 3 years stretched, visits stopped. The day he vomited through chemo and asked for his grandpa, I called 3 times. In meetings, the secretary said. That night, their steakhouse photo went up. Wine, plates, smiles. The timestamp matched his worst hours. I wrote the time down. Back at the table, Mom tallied deposits. Venue, dress, catering. Patricia said a memorial table would be tasteful. Dad repeated, "The boy won't need it now." I stood. I kept my voice low. "You skipped his funeral. You don't get to budget his money." Chairs scraped back. Voices rose. Dad promised to contest. Brad mumbled about reputation. Patricia cried hard and loud. I didn't argue. I repeated the date of transfer, the charity's name, and completed. I said I wouldn't discuss it further. Cold air in the doorway. I stepped outside and breathed. My phone started before I left the driveway. Voicemails, long texts, some pleading, some blaming. I saved everything. Not for spectacle, for record. Engine on, lights off. Listener promise. I won't raise my voice. I'll raise the facts. What comes next is paper and people who read it for a living. Tomorrow I bring the file. Tomorrow the noise meets signatures. The AC clicked once. I drove home the long way, past the cemetery. No speeches, just a date on a stone and a decision I don't regret. They chose an engagement party over a funeral. I chose children who are still fighting. The room held its breath. I turned my phone face down and set the file by the door. In the morning, an office downtown would say the same thing I'm saying now. It's legal. It's done. Cold air pooled under the vent. The toner smell was sharp. Downtown, morning. I came with a file because last night proved talk wasn't the tool. I'll tell you only what can be checked. Jonathan Pierce read in silence, one fingertip on each line. Letters, dates, transfer receipt, charity confirmation. He nodded once. As Tyler's mother and court-appointed executor, I had full authority. The donation was proper, irreversible. He stamped the last page. Paper 1, next. I breathed once. 3 years of treatment sat behind that stamp like a weight finally set down. $50,000 had a new job and a name that would outlive a cake. The room held its breath. My phone buzzed before I reached the elevator. Jennifer from the Children's Cancer Research Alliance. Gratitude first, steady and kind. Then the part you can verify. They were receiving calls. Grandparents. An aunt. Accusations about competence. Claims the money was stolen from a family emergency. She said their legal team had reviewed the documents. Everything was in order. She needed context. Paper cut the quiet. I gave it to her clean. Tyler's father died. His family funded the trust. I never touched a cent until I signed, 2 weeks before the healing dinner. 3 years of hospitals. 1 funeral I finished alone. The gift was his legacy, not my weapon. She exhaled like someone who spends her days holding other people's storms. The AC clicked once. Private rooms had failed me for months. I chose a public record that checks itself. Melissa Torres, Channel 12. Investigative. She listened for an hour, pen slow, questions exact. "I'll verify with the Alliance," she said. "I'll speak with hospital staff who knew Tyler as a child, not as a headline." She outlined what the story would be. A legal donation to help sick kids, and relatives pressing a charity with lies about mental health to claw it back. It was clear. It hurt. It was necessary. I walked back to the car with my file under my arm and the building's cold still on my sleeves. I do not like microphones. I like vitals at normal, and kids who sleep through blood draws. But sunlight is a tool, and today it belonged to Tyler. Silence pressed the door. Dad's voicemails stacked, contest, wills, warnings. Patricia's texts filled bubbles with panic and blame. Mom alternated tears with lists. I didn't answer. I wrote times down. I saved everything, not to publish, to keep a record of what happens when people think no one is keeping one. The clock started to count. Numbers don't need me to defend them. $50,000, 2 weeks prior, 3 years, 2 days after a funeral. They sit there fixed and let decent people tell the story without adjectives. Cold air, steady voice. By afternoon, Jonathan emailed a summary letter I could forward to anyone who asked. Jennifer confirmed her counsel would note the harassment on file. Melissa had her confirmations and a tentative air date. None of that brought Tyler back. All of it honored what he asked me again and again from hospital beds. Is the research working? The hallway light hummed. Thursday came. The air date became airtime. Fluorescence hummed over my kitchen table. Evening heat thinned outside. The TV was low. The file lay open next to a cold cup. I'm here to tell you what the broadcast did. Measurable, verifiable. I'll track what each dollar became. The segment ran clean. Jennifer from the Children's Cancer Research Alliance confirmed the transfer and the purpose. A legal expert called the relatives' pressure morally reprehensible and irreversible. Nurses from oncology spoke about Tyler as a boy, not a balance. Names stayed off air, facts didn't. The room held its breath. Support arrived first. Messages from nurses, a call from Grace in Denver, emails from parents who knew the sound of isolation. Then backlash. Patricia screamed defamation into my voicemail. Dad warned me in the voice he saves for clients. I blocked numbers. I rinsed the cold cup. That was the whole ceremony. Paper cut the quiet. Morning shifted the ground. Diane, my late husband's sister, called with what I hadn't known. Tyler's grandparents had added $5,000 every birthday. The account had grown past $80,000. They told no one because love doesn't need witnesses. They offered $100,000 more. Build research, support families, make the memorial behave like work. The AC clicked once. I called Jennifer. At that size, she said, the memorial could become a program. Research grants tied to family aid so no one chooses between gas and chemo. Not a plaque. Infrastructure. We listed what it could cover and how results would be reported. Planning felt like oxygen after weeks of smoke. Silence pressed the door. A week later, the call that moved this from private story to public project. Dr. Robert Chen, National Pediatric Cancer Institute. They had followed the development. Proposal. Partner to create the Tyler Research Center, $5 million over 10 years, the Alliance as community liaison, and an advisory seat for me so families stay inside the loop. Not ceremony. Payroll and protocols aimed at the leukemia that took my son. The clock started to count. Continuity matters. Private pleading failed. Documents held, the broadcast verified. Quiet grandparents stepped forward. A national institute called. Cause, reaction, consequence. No skip, no gloss. I wrote the figures in the same notebook I used for meds and counts. $50,000, $80,000, $100,000, $5,000, $1,000. 10 years. Numbers don't perform, they anchor. Cold air steadied my voice. Backlash kept circling anyway. Mom warned I was burning bridges. Patricia promised lawsuits. Dad talked reputation. Meanwhile, strangers wrote to say the story named what had happened in their own homes. I saved both kinds of notes. Records tell the truth when memory tries to negotiate. The hallway light hummed. We met with the Alliance and outlined the program. Target Tyler's leukemia subtype, pair lab timelines with family aid, measure success in months gained and bills avoided. Jennifer drafted one sentence I could say without breaking. His name will help children live longer. It fit because the numbers carried it. Paper won again. On announcement day prep, I walked the hospital corridor where I used to memorize platelet counts. Kevin's parents would sit in front, hands linked. Grace would cry without apology. Staff who stayed on night shift for Tyler would stand in back. At home that night, I practiced one paragraph, plain and exact. Tyler believed research worked. This center will prove him right for other families. The room held its breath. I set the file beside the door. Outside, evening cooled the street. Inside, budgets and dates waited for signatures. The work didn't feel like victory. It felt like duty that finally had tools. The Institute proposed a center. I said yes. Conference room light pooled across tile. The HVAC was soft and steady. Phoenix Children's Hospital. Announcement morning. I'm closing here because endings matter when they become beginnings. I won't ask for sympathy, only that we tell the truth. Dr. Robert Chen outlined the partnership. The Tyler Research Center funded $5 million over 10 years, the Alliance guiding families, my advisory seat to keep the work tied to real life. He spoke like a man measuring outcomes, not applause. Jennifer from the Children's Cancer Research Alliance followed, clear and exact. The room held its breath. I talked about Tyler asking if research worked. I said he believed every hard day taught doctors something. I said this center would fund the kind of work he believed in. The applause felt warm but quiet, like people choosing focus over spectacle. Paper cut the quiet. Kevin's parents sat in the front row, hands linked. Grace wiped her eyes and didn't hide it. Nurses from the oncology ward smiled like people who know what victory costs. Outside, through the glass, I saw my parents and Patricia on the edge of the hospital lot. They didn't come in. I met them at the curb. The AC clicked once. They said they wanted to understand what Tyler's money became. I pointed back to the building. Researchers hired, families supported, a door with his name that opens when fear does. They asked for a path back. I said there wasn't one. Consequences aren't revenge. They're a ledger. I went inside. The clock started to count. Weeks turned into structure. Budgets became labs and positions. The numbers held their line. $50,000 given in his name. The trust had grown past $80,000. Kevin's parents pledged $100,000. The Institute committed $5 million over 10 years. I kept them in my notebook like vitals, not to display, to track. Silence pressed the door. Fallout kept its own pace. My father's firm lost clients and closed. Wedding vendors kept deposits, about $20,000. Patricia's engagement ended. Later, she took a receptionist job and moved back home. I felt no victory. I felt distance, and relief that distance can be honest. Cold air, warmer resolve. 6 months later, I packed Tyler's room. Dinosaur books, drawings, Herbert the Triceratops, a framed photo from the dedication. I moved to a smaller house with a yard big enough for marigolds the color of his favorite book cover. Grief shifted shape, less weight, more echo. The hallway light hummed. I answered emails from parents who had watched the story. I returned calls to people who were where I had been, afraid, tired, organized anyway. I started meeting families at this hospital and others, rides, meals, questions for doctors, short texts at 2 a.m. that say, "You're not alone." The room held its breath. One afternoon, the phone rang. Sarah Chen. Her daughter Emma was 8 and newly diagnosed with the same leukemia. Sarah asked if being brave could also help other kids, the way Tyler hoped. We met for coffee. I told her bravery isn't loud, it's a schedule. It's showing up for appointments you hate. It's letting research borrow your fear and convert it. Paper cut the quiet. Emma wanted to know if the center with Tyler's name would help her. I said it already was. Protocols supported by the Memorial Fund were part of her plan. We set small goals, a movie for infusion days, a counted breath for needle sticks, a sticker map for progress. She liked maps. The AC clicked once. On the first anniversary, I brought marigolds and a photo of Emma smiling without pretending. "You're saving lives," I told the stone, "just like you wanted." The cemetery was quiet. The air felt like a held breath that decided to release. The clock started to count. People ask about forgiveness. I learned it isn't a key. It's a decision to stop carrying a bill in your pocket. I don't owe them access to the parts of me they tried to spend. I owe children what Tyler asked me for, work that moves a line. Cold air, steady voice. Family, I learned, is who shows up in the dark, a nurse who calls on her day off, an aunt who catches the first flight, grandparents who build a future without telling you they're doing it, researchers who keep the lights on long after ceremonies end, parents who answer hard questions without lying. The room held its breath. I still walk by the center sometimes. The door with his name opens and closes, ordinary and holy in the way good work is. Inside, people wear badges and carry clipboards and say the words I learned by heart when I was someone's mother in a hospital hallway. They keep going. Numbers don't love anyone, but they can be steered. $50,000 became $80,000, then $100,000, then $5,000 and $1,000 over 10 years. Those numbers became jobs, studies, rent grants, miles driven, parents who exhale for the first time all week. They became a way to answer a boy who asked if research worked. Paper cut the quiet. If this helped you breathe, pass it on.